Selection is never easy, taking into account that there are 33 brands with more than 240 different cigars between them to choose from. The wrapper must please the eye. The color should be even and there should be a sheen on the leaf. Like the best wine, Habanos can be kept for a good 15 years, sometimes longer. They should be stored at between 16 and 18 degrees Celsius and in a relative humidity of 65 to 70%. Storing and aging are best conducted in a large humidor where moist air can circulate. A humidor is designed for cigars and contains a moisture source. Happily, a whole industry exists making cedar humidors to help you keep your Habanos. The task of keeping and aging is best left to expert cigar shops, but you can do it at home if you wish. The result is worth waiting because the taste will have developed and your Habano will share its essence with greater ease. Filler and binder leaves are carefully removed from their bales for examination. If necessary, they are aired on racks to remove excess moisture. It is a remarkable feature of Cuban tobacco that such a small acreage of Vegas finas de primera can produce a wide variety of flavors from area to area. They call the blending department la barajita, literally the pack of cards, because the process of assembling the leaves for a blend is similar to shuffling cards. There is an established link between the factory and the areas that supply the leaf for the brands it manufactures. Nevertheless, it is the master blender's responsibility to sample the flavor of the tobaccos in use from day to day. He carries the recipe for each brand and size in his head and is guardian of their consistency. The ratio of each type of leaf that the master blender specifies for the cigars in production is issued to the cigar rollers for the day's work. Both wrapper and filler and binder leaves will be now submitted to a fermentation process which is done in pilones or piles for 25 to 30 days in order to soften leaves' flavor. All the leaves must then be sorted and classified. Wrappers, as you might expect, get the closest attention. Size, color, and texture are the three criteria that guide the sorters. They are classified into a bewildering array of some 50 different categories designed to ensure that only the most perfect will ever dress a Habano. At this stage, the lower portion of the central vein is stripped out of filler and binder leaves. At the same time, they conduct the final classification into the three tiempos. Finally, the leaves are stacked in small piles and pressed between boards. Filler and binder leaves are submitted to a second fermentation process, more intense than the first and at higher temperatures. After the second fermentation, filler and binder leaves are sorted and classified again, then packed in pacas or bales, which are transferred to Havana. Here, they will join the wrapper leaves packed in tercios, bales made from palm bark, for the final patient process of aging for different periods, sometimes for as long as 2 years. Like fine wine, the longer the leaf is left to mature, the better it will be. There are strict quality control tests at all stages of handmaking. Bundles are taken to the quality control department where technicians check the cigar for weight, length, girth, consistency, construction, and appearance, particularly examining the tightness of the wrapper and the finish of the cap. Those failing the quality control will never become Habanos. Samples are regularly taken apart to verify their internal construction and blend. The very latest quality control technique is a machine that checks the draw of the bunch by suction. The test takes place after the bunch has been pressed in the mold and before the wrapper is added. It was first introduced at the end of 2001 and is now widely used in all Cuban factories. Likewise, every factory has its team of cigars tasters, catadores, who meet every day to test cigars and score them. Novices are advised to start with one of the lighter flavored marques and to experiment with a smaller vitola such as Marevas or Petit Corona. For more experienced smokers, the best guide is the amount of time at their disposal. Press the cigar gently between your thumb and index finger. It should feel firm but springy to the touch. Enjoy the aromas of mature leaf as they waft up from the box, a promise of the flavors to come. The cut should be made just above the line where the cap meets the wrapper. The objective is to create an aperture broad enough to ensure an unobstructed draw whilst avoiding the wrapper from unraveling. Two principles apply. The first is to light your cigar with an odorless flame. Always use a spill, wooden match, or a butane gas lighter. The second is to take your time and do a thorough job. Hold the foot of the cigar at 90 degrees to the flame and rotate it until the surface is evenly charred. Place the cigar between your lips and holding the flame a centimeter away, draw on it until the flame jumps on the foot. Continue to rotate the cigar. Blow gently on the foot to check that it is evenly lit. Don't inhale. This is not a cigarette. Gently draw the smoke into your mouth and allow it to play gloriously on your taste buds. Do not remove the band for fear of damaging the wrapper. Relax and savor the subtle flavors and aromas of the tobaccos in the blend. It is fine to relight your Habano if it goes out, but first clean off any loose ash or you will find it hard to reignite. Like the best wine, a Habano is a masterpiece cultivated by a tradition of perfection. When the sad moment comes to part with your Habano, don't crush it to a pulp. Lay it to rest in the ashtray and it will go out by itself. Allow it to die with dignity. Two distinct forms of cultivation produce the different types of leaf required. One is for wrapper leaves, which are grown in tapado or covered fields shaded from end to end by muslin cloth that filters the sunlight and traps the heat so the leaves grow larger and finer. Lower leaves supply the lighter colored wrapper. Upper leaves produce the darker colored ones. The other is for filler and binder leaves, which are grown in the open, enjoying the full benefit of the Cuban sun. There are three main types of leaf taken from different levels on the plant. Ligero, from the top for full flavored filler leaves. Seco, from the middle for medium flavored leaves, the most important for aroma. And Volado, from the bottom of the plant for lighter flavored fillers, especially valued for their combustibility, as well as binders. Work starts in the burning heat of June and July and continues without respite for 9 months. Seedlings are grown in special seed beds. After 45 days, they are ready to be planted out. Different fields are planted at different times so as to spread the burden of work in each season. The time from planting the seed to completion of harvest is around 17 weeks for shade-grown plants and 16 weeks for sun-grown. The farmer visits each plant around 150 times in the course of the growing season. Harvest is a laborious task because each leaf must be picked by hand. Only 2 or 3 leaves can be taken at a time, with days to wait between each picking. The harvesting of a single plant takes close to 30 days to complete. The harvested leaves are taken to the farmer's barn for air curing. It is a slow and careful period of air curing which removes moisture and turns the leaf by stages to golden brown. The leaves are sewn in pairs and hung astride poles, which are placed on racks in the barn. As the leaf cures, so the pole is raised progressively higher in the racks. Once the leaf is cured, the farmer's job is done and the task passes to the escogida, or sorting house. Between making and packing, the cigars are taken to the conditioning room or escaparate. Here in cedar-lined cabinets, they are left to rest while they shed the excess of moisture that was gained in the rolling process. After 1 week, they are smokable, but the longer they stay here, the better. Conditions are strictly maintained at between 16 and 18 degrees centigrade and 65 to 70% relative humidity, noticeably cooler and drier than the ambient Cuban climate. The escaparate is often referred to as the treasury. It is here that the true wealth of the factory is stored. Finally, 3 years or more since the oldest leaf was picked, it is now about to become a habano. There are 4 grades of torcedor, and only the top grade is allowed to make the biggest, most complicated habanos. In a day, a torcedor can make 60 cigars of the most complicated vitolas, or sizes. The heart of any factory is la galera, or workshop. Here, torcedores make the different habanos, brands, and vitolas. Tools used in the making of a totalmente a mano cigar are a wooden board, a cutter called chaveta, a guillotine, a pot of colorless and flavorless natural vegetable gum, a template to check length and girth, a little disc-cutting casquillo, and above all, the practiced hands no machine can ever match. It takes many years to reach the peak of this time-honored craft, but one thing at least has changed. Most torcedores these days are women, torcedoras. In 1865, it was suggested that torcedores would work more pleasantly while listening to readings. The reader was born. Books read at the factories, such as Romeo and Juliet and the Count of Monte Cristo, were so popular that they lent their names to habanos brands. There are in the world just a few things that are known without question to be the best of their kind. A habano, or Havana cigar, is one of them. Nowhere in the world grows tobacco better than Cuba, but even there, only a few selected farms are judged good enough to grow the tobacco for habanos. These are called the Vegas Finas de Primera, first-class fields. There are 4 regions in Cuba where tobacco is cultivated for habano cigars: Vuelta Arriba, Partido, Semi-Vuelta, and Vuelta Abajo. This last region, located in Pinar del Rio province, is considered to be the finest cigar tobacco growing land in the world. All enjoy the natural gifts of the Cuban soil and the Cuban climate that are found nowhere else. Time has done its work, and the leaf is now ready at last to play its part in the making of a habano. This process takes place at the legendary Cuban cigar factories, where craft has changed little in nearly 200 years. Precious wrappers are prepared for their final purpose in the moja, or moistening department. Here the gavillas, bunches of 40 to 50 leaves, are held under a fine spray of pure water. The aim of this process is to give back their soft and uniform aspect as well as their elasticity. Excess droplets are then shaken off with practiced flourishes to avoid any staining. Later on, the leaves are hung on racks that are taken to the airing department, where temperature and relative humidity are controlled. They will stay here until the moisture is absorbed evenly. Then the tender hands of highly skilled women perform the despalillo, stripping, and the rezagado, grading. Despalillo consists of one movement that deftly removes the entire central vein of the leaf, leaving its two halves ready for rezagado. She gently grades them into some 20 finely distinguished sizes and shades. The number of women working in this department lends weight, perhaps, to the popular myth that habanos are rolled on maidens' thighs. A good habano sommelier is qualified to offer, handle, and prepare habanos for smoking. The selection of the right cigar is important, so his expertise can guide your choice. His advice does not end with size, because he also knows about the different brands and their flavors. His knowledge covers as well the best combinations of habanos with your favorite meal, wines, and spirits. The first step is very delicate, therefore a firm hand will always help. The cut should be made just above the line where the cap meets the wrapper. On figurados, this should be done about 3 millimeters from the point. The habano sommelier will not only be able to cut the cigar, but to light it for the guest if asked. It's essential to light the cigar with an odorless flame. Long matches or cedar spills are required. Make sure the surface is evenly charred by rotating the cigar in the flame. The habano sommelier should also take care not to stain the wrapper with the flame. This process takes approximately 1 minute. The cigar can then be served to the guest so that he can smoke his cigar, savoring all the subtle flavors and aromas of the tobaccos in the blend. One escogedor sorts the cigars in mass, dividing them by colors and shades of each color in a pattern of columns and rows that may well represent 60 or more finely distinguished shades. Great care is taken to ensure that all of the cigars in any box are the exact same shade. A second escogedor then sorts the cigars within each shade, one box full at a time, arranging them so that any slight differences in tone run dark to light from left to right across the box. The anilladora, or bander, delicately applies a band to each cigar and places them in their part-dressed box, following the escogedor's arrangement in every detail. Same face upwards, with the band appropriately aligned. The extravagant paper trimmings on the box are called habilitaciones, and Cuba was first to introduce the classic labeled cigar box. Each label has its own time-honored name. Some of them are applied before and others after the box is filled. There are various authenticating marks that you should look for when buying habanos. The Cuban government warranty seal. This green warranty seal was first introduced in 1889, and then in 1912 a new design was authorized by the Cuban government. From 2000, a serial number was added as a control measure. Another identification is the Habanos Denomination of Origin seal. It carries all boxes as a mark of the cigar's denomination of origin. The bottoms of all Habano boxes are stamped with the words Hecho en Cuba, made in Cuba, Habanos S.A., the company that markets them, and when they are. Totalmente a mano, tripa larga, totally handmade, long filler, totalmente a mano, tripa corta, totally handmade, short filler, and mecanizado, machine made. The torcedor, or torcedora, lays out the 2 or sometimes 3 half leaves that form the binder. Next, she gathers together the leaves of the filler, folding and aligning each leaf to ensure a straight passage for smoke in the finished cigar. The stronger flavored, slower burning ligero leaf is always placed at the center. Now the torcedora forms the bunch by rolling the filler into the binder. The torcedora makes her bunches in batches and presses them for 30 minutes or more in a wooden mold to set their shape. Once the half leaf is prepared for the wrapper, the bunch is laid on it and rolled. Sensitive fingertips carefully stretch and straighten the leaf. The tension in the leaf has to be perfect. Finally comes the cap, and the cigar is guillotined to length.